All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our July AMA. It's been about, the last one was in May. So it's been about 2 months to our last one. We've got a lot of fun, exciting new things to share on this one that have happened between the one in May and now. We've also got a very large group for everyone here this time around. Gene is also on his way. He's having some technical difficulties with his computer, so he will be here shortly once he's done on his like now 15-20 minute reboot of his Mac. We've also got some new faces or a new face for you all. Allison is joining us, our new Chief Marketing Officer. I'm sure you guys will have questions for her. As always, a reminder that while we are streaming this on both YouTube and on Zoom, Zoom Q&A webinar setup is our primary method for fielding questions. So it is important that you all send your questions to us over that flow through the Zoom Q&A control panel. We'll pull questions from there primarily. We did allow people to submit questions early if they had some that they wanted to share, and we'll be pulling from those questions as well when opportune, also using that as kind of a way to gauge interest on certain topics that we might see coming in the other Q&A panel. With that said, I'll let everyone start doing their introductions real quick while I fix the fact that apparently the YouTube thing is slightly squished and compressed. I'm going to fix that right now where everyone introduces themselves. We'll just kind of go in order across the screen, which for me is going to be Fish, and then JM, and then Allison and Bram.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Tsao, also known as Efficient. I'm the guy who kind of heads up the NFT strategy at Chia.
Hey guys, John Michael Hands. I'm our VP of Storage. I work with the storage industry on working with our partners and lots of stuff on proof of space.
Hey everyone, I'm Allison Van Houten. She is new Chief Marketing Officer, been here about 2 months now, and I lead our team that's responsible for shaping and telling Chia's story to the world.
It's your turn, Bram.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. I'm Bram. I do some product and engineering stuff here at Chia.
An understatement, but actually very, very true as well. Gene, our president and COO, will be here shortly. He, like I said, is working on some technical difficulties. So we're sure you guys have a lot of questions about a lot of stuff that's happened lately. Since our last AMA, we have released the NFT standard as NFT 1. We had the Cat 2 transition happen this week as well. We've had a few other little things here and there. We've seen a lot of questions come in about things like marketing plans, now that we have a marketing team, lots of other stuff. So we're expecting a wide variety of questions on those topics. There's also the elephant-sized hard drive in the room, which is the conversation about the no SSD stuff, which is, partial way why Bram and JM are here. We have a lot of things to talk about on a lot of different areas that people have been very eager to talk to us about. So hopefully we can get to all of those questions today. So to kind of start things off a little bit, let me see. Here's actually, we'll just start off with some of the Cat 1 stuff, since that's one of the first questions asked, which a bunch of those. How do we think the Cat 1 issue may have played out differently if we had found the vulnerability by that bad actor, say, several years from now? Would we have done anything differently in how we addressed it?
Probably yes. It would have been a giant mess, and we really don't want things like that to happen, which is why we paid for an audit on top of the extensive reviewing we'd already done of it ourselves and caught it and dealt with the situation now.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we do the audits. I think something some people probably missed in the blog post and in the conversations we had is that, this was found because of an actual scheduled audit we did. These audits just take time. I think if we waited to complete an audit every time we shipped something, we'd be shipping things like a year after we completed coding them.
This was actually the second.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, we did 2 audits on this. We did one audit, and then we had someone else do a second audit. Yeah. That's a good point. It's a good point. Oh, and now Gene's here. Yay. Give him a second to get his video set up there.
point worth making is that the nature of the problem is not one which indicates a likelihood of there being more problems. The nature of the problem is it's kind of a pretty basic, it's a gotcha that we hadn't thought about. And it's not like there's lots of those types of gotchas waiting in the wings. So it's like when you know the gotcha, it's easy to avoid the problem in the future. But it's not like we just did something sloppy and overlooked something somewhere, which would be pretty scary actually in terms of, wait, is there another just sloppy thing that we did? But this was I'm not sure what to call it, but a length checking issue that's easy to do. It's only in one place where it really happens. It has to do with like announcements and coin ID calculations.
Okay. Gene, are you all set there? You want to say hello to your little intro thing?
I will certainly say hello and tell you that my camera is still booting, so I apologize to everybody.
your camera has to boot separately?
My camera has to boot separately.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, I have bad camera.
Well, we don't want the bad camera. We like the
bad camera. We'll get the good camera.
Yeah, we like the good camera that you are famous for. The good camera and the good mic, the fancy Gene experience.
Your camera was on for a second.
While we wait for his camera to finish booting, let's see. So our need to reissue cats. Do we think it was better or worse of an experience with an advantage or a disadvantage of the fact that we have a coin set model instead of an account model? Is there a scenario where an account model would have made this process easier, or does the fact we use the coin set model make this process better for us?
Oh, the coin set made it way easier. What would have been a problem is if there were widespread smart cats out there, although right now there aren't, so I'm pretty confident there are almost none. So reissuing a coin with the same size and puzzle hash is probably fine. If there were things that had additional capabilities, then that type of reissuance would have broken it because they have a different parent. But yeah, due to in the coin set model, due to everything kind of looking the same, it makes it much easier to do a reissuance.
Okay. So this one's actually a question that I'll answer. It's, a ski base is the official communication for Chia Inc. How do third-party vendors such as Knuckle or Chia Dog fit? What gets you a channel? What does it mean to be endorsed by Chia? What if they turn out to be scammers? Does Chia take any responsibility, etc.? So we've actually have some structured stuff around that. In the past, like pre-mainnet launch, it was really easy for a community member who was involved in the community to get a channel because there was only so many of them and everyone kind of knew everyone, and Chia was just trying to grow the community. So we were a bit lax on it. But since last summer when mainnet launched, especially since I took over all the ecosystem stuff, we actually do have a system around what gets you a channel and official Keybase endorsement by Chia. And that basically is if you're a grant recipient. Tools that have their own channel in Chia are either a legacy holder, of which there aren't many, or a tool or project that we ended up hiring the creator of it. And the project is in this weird limbo state now where that person still maintains it, but they also work for Chia. And then the primary reason is things like Knuckle has channels because they are grant recipients. So if you received a Chia cultivation grant, part of the support we give you is your own channel to engage with the community on our public Keybase. That doesn't mean the channel will always be there. There are times where we might sunset a channel because a project fizzles out or goes a different direction, wherever it might be. As to what does it mean to be endorsed by Chia, this is why we're actually very careful about what we do endorse. We're very careful about how we endorse things and the ways in which we endorse them. And when it comes to cultivation grants, we actually outline specifically what the terms of endorsements between an individual partner and ours are. Some grant recipients get a much different slate of endorsement opportunities than others based on the amount of money and the project and how much we're supporting it in certain ways on a technical side. So that is why you won't see us screaming names really loud about one project sometimes, but other ones we might. It's because we just have arrangements that vary. All the community needs to know is if we are loudly endorsing something, we do support it, and we will help you if there are problems with it to a certain degree. But at the same time, we can only do so much. Like, everyone should be doing due diligence to a certain degree, even if we support something. That said, if we are supporting something, we have done a baseline of some due diligence on who those people are. Yeah. So we'll just, now that Gene's here, we'll address the common question that we have about 90 pre-submitted questions, and about 45 of them are this subject. And that is, no SSD. People want to know, I have a bunch of questions that all say basically the same different things in different ways. Does their stuff actually work? Do we think they actually have the gains they have? Have we been able to replicate those gains? Are we trying to reverse engineer that work? And are we going to include anything we find into the client? Those are basically the lump sum, I think, of all the questions.
So I think I'll answer that somewhat in reverse. We'd always been planning to have a new plot format that was substantially smaller. I will say that I think the answer is we lean toward them being correct, because they actually start to hit some of the theoretical maximums. We aren't yet ready to figure out exactly what we're going to do to replicate, because there is kind of an interplay between the different techniques. And I will say, however, that we do have a vast majority of that understood in-house, and we'll continue to do a little more research. Because we only really want to do one fundamental plot change, we're going to try to take a little bit of time to pull all the various kind of issues together, and whatever we can learn from that, as well as there apparently is another project out there with something similar, to really kind of get to a nearly final minimum size. And important things to understand is that once you get towards this minimum size, the returns on CPU go down very quickly. And I'll kind of leave that to Bram to kind of talk about.
Oh yes. So the way this theoretically works is we've always known, we talked about before, about how there are time-space trade-offs that are available, which sounds a little scary, but due to the way our format works, it's really not. So to drastically oversimplify, you could if you don't use the trickery that we're using for proofs of space, if you just do naive like rainbow tables, then you have very straightforward time-space trade-offs, where you can, if you like double the amount of CPU that you use, you double the amount of, you have the amount of space that you have. So you double the amount of effective space that it looks like you have. And then the whole thing just winds up basically descending into being a computation-based proof of work again, because there's just no limit on the amount of space you can make it appear that you have by throwing more computational power at it. With what we're doing, it kind of acts like there's half of it that's compressible that way and half of it that's not, which isn't too bad, because what winds up happening is the half that's compressible that way, you can do like 1,000 iterations, like multiply the amount of computation you're using by 1,000, which is really still nothing. For all practical purposes, that's de minimis. And at that point, you've taken that half of the space and reduced it to like, what, 0.05% of the space, and then further, like going another factor of like 10 will make that like 0.005%. So the amount of marginal benefit you're getting from throwing more CPU beyond a pretty nominal amount winds up going down very fast. Now, likely that it won't be quite as clean as that, but that's the general flavor of what we expect out of how well the time-space trade-offs work. And we do have an implementation already that we put together of a time-space trade-off. It is possible to do better than the one that we have right now, but we put in a pretty simple one that gets like over 10% reductions in size already. But it's possible to do better than that. So we're continuing to work on it. We're continuing to work on reverse engineering what's out there and talking to other potential partners who tell us they have stuff. And yeah, we're just getting our ducks in a row to figure out exactly what it is that we're going to release here.
Yeah, and to preempt a couple more questions, there will likely be both a new plotting tool, upgraded version that gets to here, and probably a shrinking tool, because most of the techniques you can kind of do in situ and shrink the actual existing files you have.
Yeah, we've also been, for a while now, we've been working on a shrinking tool, which gets a few percent. The nature of the improvements that of what we've been working on is not time space trade-offs. It's much more just universal benefit things, and I think are mostly accretive to the other stuff that we're doing. So we'll get that like couple of % on top of whatever other shrinkage we get. But all these things are mostly compressible, doing a pass over everything. And mostly these things are of like basically getting rid of the first table or two, like dramatically compressing them and leaving everything else for the most part completely identical to what it was before.
And then the major impact ultimately will just be that we'll probably have an old net space constant and a new net space constant once we're complete with kind of getting the vast majority of this in and out.
Cool. All right. I think I touched on most of the stuff on that subject. If other questions that are very different from that come back up later, we'll answer them. But forgive me if I don't tag anyone else's questions on that particular topic. So Gene, got one here for you. Folks are very interested to hear about our custody solution and when we might publish any more details on how we handle that. And we're going to handle that. This person says they're asking on behalf of the financial services industry, who I assume is very interested in this.
Yeah, you know, as Bram put it, everybody in the crypto space is always looking for the next Ponzi when really they should be looking for the next custody solution. We are going to be rolling the pre-farm into our custody solution. We have been doing extensive testing, and you can imagine why we were doing that extensive testing. The details are actually already in GitHub. There's a public repo, and I think we can try to find that and post it link-wise. Point being, it's out there. It is not very user-friendly. It is very much for us at this point. But in the product roadmap that we'll be disclosing here publicly shortly, you know, we're going to be rolling that both into the kind of core command line and then later into the GUI and UX through the back half of the year. So some of those pieces, not the whole thing, will be actually start to be available directly in the Chia wallet. It's downloadable. The nice part, though, is with those tools we're already publishing, if you're a developer, I think you're going to quickly see how we can do vaulting and custodying, rekeying. So, you know, it's more than just like Imavin signatures to spend. It's also things like there's a break glass key that can independently recall a transaction during a certain period of time. There's some complexity in our custody around our 90-day timeline that most people probably will not have. So there's a little bit of, you know, custom business logic there. But the rest of it is all very generalizable and very useful and really lets you kind of build a set of controls that make it so that even if you do have somebody who loses a key or leaves the company or their key is stolen, you can actually kind of rekey them out relatively easily with, you know, a larger quorum of the rest.
Oh, the thing that's a little custom and weird in it, actually, it's not the 90-day thing, because that's in the parameters. You can twiddle those numbers straightforwardly, and other people will want the numbers different for whatever reason. But the thing that's kind of custom logic is it has this absolute time lock in it and how quickly you can pull stuff out of it. That's kind of weird because it's set as just an absolute limit that cannot be violated with any other key or anything. And we're doing that to like give people confidence that we like literally physically cannot pull funds out faster than a certain particular rate from the whole thing. Functionality like that people might want for other things, just along the lines of like having a rate limited wallet where there's a cold key that can pull stuff out quickly. But the particular way it's put together in our custody solution is a little, that one part of it is a little bit bespoke. So most people who want a productized version of it, the most simple instantiation of which is just a rekeyable multi-sig wallet, will just kind of want the rate limit lockup just ripped out of it.
Cool. Moving on from custody, got another one here for Eugene. This person asked, is Asteroids still a client? Is that still a thing we're going to be talking about? And if so, what are their thoughts on the Cat2 situation? And I would actually expand that to simply any of our enterprise partners that we're talking with. You know, has anyone, what are their thoughts on the Cat2 situation?
Yep. I'll reiterate something I've been saying before, that Asteroids, the technology, was deployed as Cat1 and the infrastructure at the beginning of the year, and obviously iterated as Cat2. The Asteroids partner is still there. It is going to happen. I will tell you that our enterprise customers are excited by the fact that we have now audited this specific set of code twice. And the fact that the second one found something that was not, by the way, in the first one, so the first one did not find it because it was not there at the time. We consider that a win. It's almost impossible to write perfect software. I'll just say it simpler. It is impossible to write perfect software. Even PGP had almost exactly this CV in the early 2000s. So this is why we had 2 different auditing firms of the top 3 auditing firms in the world have looked at this specific primitive twice. To answer another question that's going to come, we also have a third auditing firm that had kind of looked at, assumed that the academic work and proof of time, proof of space works. Did we implement it correctly up to Chia Lisp? And so that was the NCC Group audit that's available publicly as well. So there are 3 audits now. There's NCC Group, Least Authority, and the most recent Trail of Bits audit. The Trail of Bits audit will be out publicly in a couple weeks because there's a final step of them confirming that our fix is a fix, but we're very confident that that's the case. So, if anything, I'd say that our enterprise customers are excited that we are doing the best practices of, identifying the riskiest components of our code and making sure we're getting lots of eyes on it. I'm pretty sure Bram probably said this before I joined, but, CAT is the one thing you can most truly mess with easiest. That's the largest attack surface because you do have direct control and possession, if you will, of a Chia asset token, just a coin. So,
all right. Switching gears a little bit.
Go for it. To be fair, we believe that when the CAT code base was audited previously, that this problem was not in there at the time.
I confirm that was true, by the way, yesterday. So I just want to be clear. I can tell you, yeah, it was not there at the time when they were auditing colored coins.
Okay. So switching gears a little bit from CATs to NFTs. First question in that vein to kind of like start the conversation, a couple of NFT questions I have queued up here. Everyone on the call has been asked by someone, which community projects are each of you most excited by? So I also go in the order y'all are on my screen. So Fish, you can go first.
I'm always looking for something that's pushing the boundaries of NFTs, new use cases. So the one that I'm interested in seeing working out is Lonely Rocks. You can find them at lonely.rocks and check it out. But yeah, new use cases, pushing the boundary.
And on my screen, that I'm next to that, and that's actually the same thing. I think all the NFT projects we currently have are really cool. There's some really neat ones out there. Some a bit cooler than others in different varying ways of same thing, different parts cooler. But what really excites me is the future stuff. I personally am not a huge person when it comes to art NFTs. I recognize the value they have to people. I recognize the value they have to the ecosystem, and I don't dislike them. They don't excite me. What excites me is the other stuff you can do with NFTs. It's like titles of ownership of a piece of technology, or titles of ownership of something, or like, it'd be nice if I could buy an Adobe Photoshop license via NFT and they stop charging me every month or every year to have Photoshop. I just have an NFT that says I have Photoshop for life, leave me alone, Adobe, things like that. That's the kind of stuff that excites me. How about you, JM?
I've been having a lot of fun with trading, like Hashgreen and Dexy have been a lot of fun for NFTs and cats trading. So getting my space bucks nice and warm.
And Allison?
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about a concept I'm excited about, and that is for one, to support Rich and Jay's point of seeing how innovation happens in the space and what the range of new projects come up. The other thing I'm really excited about is developers and creators in this space using this as an opportunity to bring in other people from other blockchains and actually using it as an active outreach to more communities to help increase awareness of Chia in that space too. And always looking for more either women-led or non-binary-led projects coming into the space, both on the developer and creator side.
And Brad? I'm really looking forward to getting AMMs. That's a pretty ambitious project that's being worked on right now that I've spoken to people working on it about. So it'll be really exciting to see that. That's specifically Hashgreen.
that leaves you, Gene.
So Jay, I just have to laugh that, of course, you're not a big NFT fan, except you've got an NFT background. So
yeah, this is actually one of the 3 NFTs I own. Yeah, I actually bought this NFT because it was worth every penny because JM background, a thing. But most importantly, this is one of my favorite paintings in the world. Before we all started this, and a few of us were in chat, I actually pointed out, I have a reproduction of Starry Night that's actually like a machine reproduction of an actual oil painting made, because it's one of my favorite paintings in the world.
Well, so to answer your question generally, like there's a bunch of exciting things. Some of this gets into personal art taste, but like I will say, I'm really interested in what the heck Catmost Coin is going to do, because the character that Endertown has created in that cat is really hilarious, and the interaction with Chi Chi has been hilarious on top of that. Also, there is a new launch in the last 24 hours, I believe. Some really interesting cypherpunk art. I think I even saw Paul Hainsworth, for example, was talking about how interesting the art itself was. So, it is just fascinating to watch everyone, go out and create. And, it's the hardest part for me is to know which stuff is the, if you will, AI only, and which stuff is the, true artist kind of recombinant stuff. Either way, fascinating and loving watching the community do it.
Okay. Also on the subject of NFTs, I got a bunch of questions here about the holiday NFT, so I'll talk about that a little bit. People are asking in a couple different questions. What are the plans for holiday NFT? When will we exchange it? What's it going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So to give folks kind of an update on that, we had hoped to do a holiday NFT finally exchange with a cat for NFT around the same time as NFT 1. But there are a couple complications. One was the way in which you'll be able to redeem it will be kind of you'll have a week or 2 or 3 or maybe longer to actually do that redemption. And we wanted to give you time to do it. We knew when we launched NFT 1 that the Cat 2 thing was underway. So it would not have made sense to have launched a program where you could exchange a cat for an NFT and then somewhere along the line we were going to do the cat swap, because it would have just complicated that project. So that's why we didn't do it at the launch. Secondly, we have to build like the mechanism for you to be able to swap them. But what's going to happen is in the not too distant future, like within under 60 days, you're going to be able to take the cat token that you have for the holiday, the new one, because everyone should have a cat 2 of it now. You can take your cat 2 holiday 21 token. You'll be able to go to a particular site we will have, and you will be able to exchange it. And then you will get the NFT instead, and you'll have that NFT. The NFT has been designed. It's really cool. It's nothing crazy fancy. This is not, Chia Friends was a very special thing that we did that was self-contained experience of its own. This is not another Chia Friends. I want to manage expectations. It's just a pretty NFT that is kind of a merit badge, reward, achievement unlock type thing to show that in 2021, as we announced with the blog post in December, in 2021, during that first year, you farmed a block. And so you got a holiday Christmas card essentially from us in the form of an NFT. And this is just delivering on that. So no crazy utility, no crazy stuff. Maybe other folks could build utility off of you possessing one, maybe, but it's just meant to be a memento that you can keep and hang on to, and kind of hopefully one day be a part of other collectible mementos that maybe Chia will give you for accomplishments, kind of like achievements. But it's going to be soonish, before terribly long. Let's see. What else do we have here for NFTs? Well, I've got in that direction. There was a question. I think maybe Allison and Richard, you guys can handle this one. There was a question about Chia Friends. Folks want to know if we're going to go back and add any utility to those anytime in the future.
Allison, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. We are we're kind of looking into what the future of Chia Friends look like. So nothing specific to report at this time. But if we do intend to do that, we'll make sure we share it with the community. But nothing new to report today.
Okay. What else do we have? Gene, your favorite question. I got 3 of these. No, 4, 5, 7.
It's
12.
one of 2 questions.
Coinbase when?
Yeah.
That's the question.
So as I've said before, Coinbase has publicly stated that they have considered and are considering Chia. As I've also said before, all of our exchanges do not really let us comment on our engagement with them until after they announce that they have listed it or are going to list it. I will quote one fact to everyone to remind them that the head of product management for listing is now in jail as of this week. So I'm sure that listing over there has been a little interesting.
That is, yeah, that's a slight complication. So we got a question here. I think this is one, Rich, you could maybe clarify a bit on. So the question, the initial question is, what's our stance on Sky NFT? Why did we choose to promote them so much over Mint Garden or NFTR? And I think part of that question is actually misunderstanding. We didn't choose them over Mint Garden NFTR. There's things behind that. So you want to kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So we originally want to actually work with Mint Garden and FTR as launch partners, but as time progressed and they were working out their business model and their product, they realized they just couldn't launch on the day we could launch our standard, right? It's just simply of timing. Okay. So because of that, we want to kind of work with whoever was ready on day one, and Sky NFT did. They were ready on day one. So, it's not like we were picking favorites. It was like, this is who was available at the time, just like Dexy was ready on day one as well. So we just basically said, whoever was ready on day one, we'll, mention it to them. So it's not like, here's NFT one standard, but there's nothing to do with it. This is also the reason why we launched Chia Friends, right? Gene actually had the original suggestion. He was like, hey, let's make sure we have something to trade on day one. So this is the genesis of why Chia Friends was started as well. It was just to give a community a jump start of using this stuff. We don't have a particular stance on Sky NFT. We want everybody to succeed, decentralized, centralized, different business models. We're here to build the ecosystem, right? So I hope that answers that really well.
I want to go back real quick because there's another question I saw further down about the holiday NFT that I actually didn't address when I outlined it. And this question is actually a good one. They're asking, are all the holiday NFTs going to be identical, or are there variations like with Chia Friends? No, there won't be variations. The holiday NFT is meant to be a belated Christmas card from us, basically, and like an achievement merit badge for having gotten a plot found last year. So as a result, they're all the same. It's meant to be a little something you keep for yourself, not a thing that's on a scale of rarity or value. So no, they're all going to be the same. That said, let's see. So speaking of NFTs and then the DIDs, Gene, are we thinking about providing any kind of a name service as a verifiable DID solution?
Yeah, and I'd say it's something we want to actually partner with folks in the ecosystem. And the reason I say that is I don't know that we're going to have time to get to the depth of it as quickly, but we have something unique that other ecosystems don't. And that is the company can actually go, for example, go to IANA and others and actually sponsor getting the stuff to work fully in the Internet Protocol stack. So this is one of those kind of more open projects. The people you should talk to is probably myself or Paul Hainsworth if you're thinking about it. Because we definitely want to kind of coordinate on a staged rollout to be able to have maybe a name service that actually resolves domain names too.
Okay. Got another one here for you, Gene. So this I think was meant to be kind of a troll question that we were asked, and I don't think the person expected us to actually answer it, but I think there's something of value for you to talk about here. So the question, I'm just going to read it exactly as they asked it. This person said, and I quote, "I've heard rumors that your IPO has now been canceled because of you engaging in the market and insider trading of Chia Friends." Any comment?
The first comment is total lie. Thanks, Bob. Now, the far more important question is, where are we on an offering? And when we last kind of got together like this, I was saying, we're on a dual track, but we were thinking it was leaning slightly SPAC. I'll tell you that since with the market meltdown and us not melting down in the same way and some other, market feedback, I think we're fully back on the dual track. I am quite comfortable with the fact that we're at least going to be able to get on file shortly. But the real issue out there is the macro environment. We cannot control inflation, the strength of the dollar, and the fact that right now nothing is going public. I mean, the average number of companies that go public in a month in the United States is usually in the hundreds. I think it's in the single digits right now. So understand that the world is just kind of different. But we do want to be in the right place when that right time comes, which is harder to predict. And so that's kind of where we're heading there. The other kind of hidden question that's often kind of asked in here is, hey, are you guys going to run out of money? And so I'll go ahead and preempt that with, we got more than a year cash at the level of spend we're at. We kind of over budget and come in nicely under, but still have room to grow. Allison's coming aboard and hiring folks and has a budget, for example. And, that's exactly where we want to be. We are certainly being a little more cautious, just like I think you see people like, Amazon and Apple being cautious, even though they're, continuing to see strong earnings and profits as we saw from Apple yesterday. So, we see this as an opportunity to kind of expand the foothold we have, and we have real resources to do it with. That also means that it's even easier for us to get more resources to do it with, especially in the short term, as we really think about what the next 3-4 years look like.
All right. I got a question for you, JM. It literally says, this question is for JM. Seagate announcing 30 terabyte drives to be released by mid 2023 utilizing HAMR, which is heat assisted magnetic recording. Does this higher capacity of storage provide more opportunity for the Circular Drive initiative? And what is the current status of the collaboration within Western Digital and Seagate for the Circular Drive initiative?
Yeah, there's a couple questions there. So first, I don't know if you guys saw Seagate's last earning announcement, but they absolutely got hammered on what they call their legacy business, which is the consumer market, like small external hard drives, and then the 2.5-inch hard drives. And this is not shocking. Anybody who has been to Best Buy or anywhere recently or not been living under a cave knows for small consumer devices, like laptops, SSDs are mainstream. So, but they're kind of breaking out their two businesses and saying mass capacity and then everything else. And then their mass capacity segment is still the only business left growing. And so you'll see them heavily investing in stuff like HAMR. One of the things that they're doing in the near term, them and Western Digital have announced these 22 terabyte CMRs and 26 terabyte SMR drives, which these are generally not meant for consumers. And I'm trying to get them to offer them in the channel to Chia farmers and other people that want to buy them just for high capacity drives. And this is going to be something really interesting. The other thing we mentioned is we do already have a partnership with Seagate and the factory certified program for any farmers that want to get in on that. We partnered with a couple of people in the community to get kind of onesie twosie type drives, but definitely reach out to us. They've been already supporting us on factory recertified drives and used drives for Chia farmers. On the Circular Drive Initiative, we have a ton of really interesting announcements. I'm presenting a track on the Flash Memory Summit next week in the Bay Area, and I'll send some details of the announcements later for those two folks that want to attend. But we'll be giving an update on CDI there. We've made tremendous progress on a brand new white paper that will be published on Open Compute Project, as well as the CDI website here in the next couple weeks on this topic. So, and then as far as CDI, the actual company is formed, and articles of incorporation have been filed. We're waiting on a couple of the last founding members. We have 8 of founding members to basically sign the agreement before we can actually make a big public announcement. So that will have to wait a couple months. There's obviously some high sensitivity about data security from hyperscalers, so we can't step on anybody's feet. But we've made amazing progress. So yeah, to reiterate, big drives are awesome for Chia farming, and the same ones that are being used in hyperscale will be able to be used in Chia farming. There's no difference in the drives, and so we're going to make those available to all Chia farmers.
Okay, thank you, sir. Got another question going back to the holiday one. I'll knock out real fast for the holiday NFT. Someone said, for the cat, I don't want the NFT. I want merch. I thought merch would be in the pipeline for it. No, question mark. And the answer is yes. So you can still not redeem one of your cats or either cat for the NFT. It's not a requirement. You can still keep the cats and use them as a discount for merch. That was always planned. As to merch itself, we kind of talked about this in the last AMA in May. It's kind of the same situation now as it was then. To give you a bit of inside baseball, the whole idea of doing merch for the community to become available, I gave that to our amazing designer Seth, the brainchild behind the Chia Friends that you all like. He's been on AMA before. I don't know. He's been on some of the Twitter live chat stuff. Seth has worked with one of our operations people to put together a plan for actually creating and distributing merch. And then when Allison was on her way in and we were, hiring her, that was kind of paused because it's kind of dumb to build a program out for merchandising when you're hiring a head of marketing and you don't want them to come in and be like, we just did this thing days ago. Here, it's yours now. So it was all kind of paused. Where that's at now is basically still slightly paused, but we are going to do the merch. Like the merch is still happening. You do not have to trade in your cats for NFTs if you don't want to. You can keep the cats just because you want the cat. Or you can keep the cat if you want to use it as a discount for merch, as was originally planned, or once we actually have the merch store. And then another question I'll grab real quick is plans for the next Chia hackathon. And the answer is we don't have any plans currently. The hackathons we've done so far have been in partnership with other organizations. It's been companies, organizations who wanted to do one and worked with us to do it. It was, oh, well, I'm having a brain fart. Who was the one we did it with last year?
Cirrus Labs.
Cirrus Labs. Yeah, it was Cirrus Labs. Thank you. And then there was the one that we did with our friends earlier this year at, oh wow, I'm bad at this. JM, who are our friends at that we did the last, because you brought them. Anyways, the last couple hackathons we did that I'm just blanking on proper names right now, were all partnerships where someone came to us and said, we'd like you to work with us to do a hackathon doing Chia stuff. And so we were like, yeah, this is, we'll support this. As to an actual hackathon fully run end to end just by Chia, that is a really like long tail one with like several days of development and structured, all this kind of stuff. We still want to do that. We're looking to do that. It's really an artifact of having all the resources in place on our side and having enough things in the wild for developer tools to actually equip people with the ability to make cool stuff. We did kind of a light one with the cats when the cats came out, but like there's only so much you could do with the initial like beta version of like right before Cat 1. What we really want to make sure is we have a lot of really great developer tools available that have a very large tool set of flexibility so that we can bring in all these teams and you don't have 20 teams making 20 versions of more or less the same thing. We want 20 teams to build 20 completely different and unique things. And to do that, we need to give them all the developer tools we can and set them up for that kind of success. So we're not quite there yet, but we're definitely looking at. In the meantime, if someone comes to us who wants to do a partnership like the previous ones that actually makes sense and focuses partially on their tech and product and partially on ours together in a way that actually works, we're open to supporting that as well if we find people to do that with. Gene, was the soft fork related to the cause of Cat 1 being vulnerable? Obviously, it's an easy answer. I'm sure you want to kind of dive in.
Yeah, the answer is not at all. There were two separate issues. The soft fork was done because we did not handle negative division in the division operator in Chia Lisp correctly, but you could get the right answer out of div mod. So what we did is we basically banned negative division in the division operator for Chia Lisp. There were no negative divisions, ones that we could find on the network, even before the soft fork. So it apparently impacted absolutely no one. But it just means that if you want to do negative division, use divmod.
Negative division being treated as an error is probably what most people want most of the time anyway. Like adding a negative number isn't that weird. Dividing a negative number is kind of strange, as evidenced by the fact that we screwed up implementation of it. So.
Alrighty. Gene, I could probably help you do this one too if necessary. Do we plan to create a central list of things we'd like to see built by the community? And do we have any thoughts or considerations that any Chia employees have already given on that topic?
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about this in the last AMA, I think, Tim.
Yeah, though there's something formal about to happen. Week of August 15th is what we're targeting, is another AMA around product roadmap. And we're launching a new tool. That's partially why there's been a delay in kind of updating both Trello and the other items, was moving over to that tool, selecting that tool, all of those pieces. That tool is also going to have an ability for us to list those things of, hey, here's where we are, here's what we've scoped, here's what we'd love to see somebody do. And I'll give you an example, one I expect to be on there, which is BTC Pay Server. We would love for somebody to go ahead and integrate Chia into that as one of the supported Chia, tools, one of the supported tools and payment cryptocurrencies for BTC Pay Server. So anybody who uses BTC Pay Server can take Chia, right? There are others, I think, .xch, ENS style item is one of those items. So I think we'll be able to talk a lot more about that and then really kind of show off what that tool has and then what we're going to be doing in the second half and kind of early next year.
Alrighty. We answered that one. Gene, another one for you. On which core functions and features is the team working on right now after the obviously Cat 2 stuff? What are our current priorities and why?
And again, this comes back to, we're going to really give you an in-depth answer to that on the week of August 15th. There are a few vacations that are causing us not to be able to go faster than that, but we like our people to get some time off too. The answer short term is that we are completing some cleanup work around the climate warehouse. No real changes in functionality, but really, kind of making our data layer implementation much more rich and robust for beyond just the climate warehouse. And so that's actually kind of tied to, ultimately a product launch of that as well. And then, we've kind of launched DID 0. We want to get DID 1 out And so that's the other big thing you'll see, as well as there's a lot of node and wallet performance improvements that in some are already in main, but did not make it into 1.5 because we didn't want to expend its scope anything beyond getting the security issue dealt with. So, a 1.5.1 is going to have a lot of that in it, and there may be a little bit more of that because we're hoping to start relaxing the 50% block limit. I think what we're leaning toward on that is sort of like maybe we'll move it to 60% in 1.5.1, and then as we kind of iterate, add another 5 to 10 points, just to make sure that we're not making it so that older hardware, the Pi, can't keep up. I can tell you, I'm running main on my Pi. And during all the reissuances, we had bin pools at the size of 500 and full blocks, and my Pi didn't notice nor care. So we're going to be cautious about exactly how we do that because we want to keep the blockchain as stable as it's been. But we do want to get up to the maximum TPS at layer 1 too.
All right. Also, my DMs have lit up like a Christmas tree because everyone and their cousin are reminding me that the name I can't remember was Clover, which I feel bad about because Clover is awesome. Clover was the awesome tool that you can still use. That's great that you can do Chia Lisp programming in that allows you to spin up a development environment, including your own node within a matter of minutes and have a full encapsulated Chia Lisp development environment. That's CLOVYR, Clover. Yeah. Allison, I got one here for you. Will trying to clean up all of the early FUD floating around out there about Chia be part of our soonish marketing strategy?
A really good question, and I think if you think about what causes FUD, that's definitely part of our marketing strategy because a big piece of it is really clarifying Chia's story and helping people understand what's so special about us, right? This idea of trying to find a better way to unlock global financial access, transparency, and the empowerment that comes with that, restoring trust in decentralized technology, right? And building and innovating in a way that really is different, where we're security first, we're leaders in sustainability, and we're really collaborative from a compliance perspective. So I think one of the ways to alleviate FUD is to just put more resources and effort in telling the great story that's already here and make sure more and more people across the media and all of our different target audiences that we're trying to bring onto the platform really both succinctly and in depth when necessary know the most important parts of that story that resonate with them. So short answer is yes, and there is a marketing strategy behind it, really grounded in defining our brand and positioning.
All right. This one I'm gonna throw Bram's way. It's fun and I like it. So the actual question is, was it Allison who got the team to post all their hellos on Twitter each morning? And a little bit backstory behind this question, that all kind of began around the week she joined. And there was entire Twitter threads and Reddit discussions about how it was too coincidental to be happening her first week here. It was clearly the first indication of our marketing strategy and was a brilliant stroke of genius. But the reality is that isn't the case. Bram, well, you just randomly started saying hello and good morning and Twitter in the mornings. Why is that?
Because what happened was that someone actually explained to me that in the past when Ethereum people were saying good morning all the time, this was an inside code thing of like they did it on days when the market was going up to like mock everyone else and talk about how cool they were, and it was actually pretty obnoxious. So I'm like, oh, that's what all that saying good morning meant and why they were so smug. So I decided to just reclaim saying good morning and just start saying good morning, just on any random day, just to, regardless of what the market was doing, just say good morning to people. And coincidentally, the first day I said good morning, our price just exploded. So it's like kind of missed my point there about how just saying good morning regardless of market conditions. I have not been doing it every single day. I am trying to say things other than good morning on Twitter. Sometimes I'm busy for Twitter. But yeah, that's the meaning. I've also been trying to be respectful of the fact that actually not that much of the world's population lives in California. So I'm like, good morning. And everyone's like, Bram, it's night. So yeah, I like just It is actually just nice to wish everyone a good day. So we'll probably keep that up.
I have a friend. I have a friend back when I was doing developer relations at Riot, from our developer community of people that we flew in for our hackathons there, that I follow on Twitter. And she lives in Japan and she's a software developer. And she tweets good morning in both English and Japanese every single day for like 7 years now. She has not missed a day. And anytime I happen to be on Twitter at the right time and it scrolls past my feed, I click like and I'll give her the like for it. But like, it's just, people look forward to that. Like, the people have commented if you've ever missed one or been late on one. People talk about it in our community. They're like, "What's Brand? Where's this good morning? What's wrong?"
Yeah, I want to miss them from time to time just to make clear that I'm not a slave to it.
But people need that proof of life.
Yeah.
So a more serious question for you. Do you have any ideas kicking around in that incomprehensibly complex brain of yours about on-chain voting mechanisms?
Yes. Well, there's a few different reasons and types of on-chain voting mechanisms that you can build, but very specifically on our roadmap is building DAO cats, which we might rebrand to something other than DAOs, because these might be just like the on-chain governance portions of like normal LLCs and stuff. And those will support making it so that the shares in the thing are fungible and that it's possible to hold votes and issue dividends where all participants get proportionate to the amount of tokens that they're holding in it and cannot double spend those. That's most definitely a thing on our roadmap of things to build to enable DAO and more serious, like just actually just normal boring company kind of functionality on chain.
Okay. Not Bram, sorry, Gene. I got two that kind of go together here for you. The first is, this person says, very excited about DID and what we're going to do with it. Do we have any use cases for it coming soon beyond what we're doing with NFTs currently? Do we plan for any APIs to the web to authenticate the DID, like a connect with your DID type button thing? Any more exciting features planned? And then a later question that I think kind of goes with it is, are we going to be inventing our own standard for how we do DID, or do we plan to follow the W3C suggestions?
Yeah, so I'll probably go backwards first. So Bram and I and Chris Allen, and Chris was one of the movers and shakers in getting the W3C DID standard set, our old friends, dating back to the PGP era. We are huge supporters of the W3C DID standard, and kind of point out that the real pushback against it was actually Web 2 companies complaining that it would be proof of work. And so we actually think we're one of the kind of shining lights that, in fact, it can be completely sustainable and really give us all the cool features that DID is going to have. There is already a community organized chip about two-way authentication of things like Keybase style proofs back and forth between, say, Discord and Twitter, for example. And we see that as a use case. We're also going to certainly be looking at whether we're using permission cats that kind of Bram was talking about, or DID directly first. Either way, we're going to be using things like verified credentials to do various things, up to and including long-term things like single sign-on for businesses and personal. So we see this as the gateway to a very large opportunity to solve a whole bunch of identity and access control problems. Login with Chia should ultimately be bigger than login with Twitter.
Okay. Oops, we did that one. Sorry, I'm scrolling through questions here, and a couple of them we've already. Gene, do we have any news around Chia Lisp dev tooling, like debugging tools or syntax completion tools? And I'm guessing they're talking more like IDE type stuff.
Yeah, this is right now, like if you make a typo in a Chia Lisp contract, there's like no hint of what your typo is, for example. Also, the kind of implementations with the IDEs are limited right now. When we give everybody a little better details on the roadmap, and again, that August 15th week AMA, you're going to see quite a bit of developer tools, taking up our kind of 60 to 90 day timeline, because we really do want to get these tools out there to make the day-to-day quality of life of a Chia Lisp developer, or what I would call Chia developer who needs some Chia Lisp to get their job done developer much easier.
Okay.
And we're excited to see a pretty diverse developer community already starting to happen out there.
Mm-hmm. So in the form that I allow people to send questions into beforehand, there's actually a lot of questions about this, and I don't consider it a question so much. Well, they're asking questions, but I don't think it's an actual question for us to answer because the premise is flawed. But I think the topic is something we should talk about because it comes up now and then. I think we haven't talked about it in a while. There's a lot of questions that talk about the luck factor of finding blocks. People seem to think there's some conspiratorial thing in the chain where you are more likely to find 2 blocks back to back than not, where there's a reason why if you haven't found one 2 and 3 times past your estimated time to win, there's a reason why you're so far beyond the scope of your time to win, and then you suddenly get one. There's a lot of just conspiratorial tinfoil hat stuff about block finding win times. I don't think people truly understand what randomness means and what luck means. Would you guys like to talk about that at all?
Yeah, that was one of the very first things Gene and I did was put this crappy Excel calculator on Google Sheets for the Poisson distribution on random block time. Back before pooling protocols, and we had an actual way to gauge whether or not you were responding to partials correctly. The only way you would actually know if your farm was working correctly is if you were winning blocks. And unfortunately, that was a really rough way because people would often go really far beyond, the average time to win. And if you get beyond a statistical, distribution, then something is actually broken. So not saying that it is not useful to look at that data. It actually is very useful because if there's something going on where you're in a 1 in 100,000 or 1 in 200,000 chance of being unlucky, then it's more likely actually that your farm is broken. No, yeah, go. The whole back-to-back thing is funny. Actually, we have a couple of those on my pool, and it's just welcome to Poisson distribution.
Okay. So this is more not about our core technology, but about the wallet product. Someone wants to know, when will we be able to mark a wallet with a note to identify which wallet I'm using for which, give it a friendly name instead of a fingerprint number identity. And another question we have in here is for wallets and transactions, a bit more core technologies. When will we be able to use proper memos to actually attach notes to transactions?
So I'll take the first one, which is that the design of the fingerprinting where you put a name in was literally like bopping around in Keybase Wednesday. So not clear that it'll necessarily make 151, but it would certainly probably be in the next release. And, this is the idea that you can say instead of a fingerprint number, like personal account, NFT account, those kinds of things. On the other one, we are thinking about potentially ways to do sort of an on-chain messaging for limited messaging types. People look at the memo thing and I think cats and kind of have the wrong idea about that. That's really to hint about functionality, not necessarily to send a message. But I think we're going to do something that would allow you to do things like send a message with some anti-spam protection because it'll cost something to send an offer to a wallet that, say, has an NFT you'd like. So that was kind of where that germinated from. And, it's very early, so no idea when you'll see that. But it's definitely something on the, thinking about adding to roadmap step.
Okay. Someone brought up a good point to me that I think is actually worth talking about. We announced in the blog post the details on the follow up a little bit about the actual Cat 1 vulnerability. We did say there's going to be a CVE that the MITRE.org folks kind of let us down on publishing. It still hasn't gone live. Do we actually want to actually explain in detail like what it actually was to folks on this?
Yeah, let's do that, Bram, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So a cat ID, or sorry, not cat ID, a coin ID on Chia is defined as 3 things. There's a parent ID, and there's a puzzle hash, and there's an amount. And the ID is taken by concatenating these and hashing it. Now, most of the time, 90 to 99% of the time, you kind of accidentally wind up checking the lengths anyway, because you hash the first 2 things are fixed length, and you wind up hashing them and stuff. And even if you have a security problem there, just the fact that you're checking that the puzzle hash matches is going to make it so that you can't monkey around with the length of the amount, because it's just going to map onto a wrong thing again. So in retrospect, it would have been better to make it so you calculate the coin ID by SHA-treeing those 3 values rather than concatenating and hashing them. However, as it happens, there's a place in the cat code base where it is just given the 3 values, and the only validation it does of them is checking that they are in fact part of the coin ID of itself, and not checking what their lengths are. And so what you can do is give a longer string for the current amount and a shorter string for the puzzle hash. And as long as they still concatenate to the same value, it'll think this is fine. Of course, you can trivially make the amount longer string. And when you make the amount a longer string, it's a much, much larger value, which allows you to create new cat coins in the amount of that value. And so this allows you very straightforwardly to just print new cat coins, because the cats have this restriction on you that your amount can't change, but because you have this large tax surface where you can monkey with them, and they're so heavily reliant on like the parent having gotten certain, like validating the parent, and when the parent has validated certain things, then you're good to go, and not checking their own stuff all that heavily. Because of that, there's this attack available. Now fixing this is very straightforward. You just check the lengths on the values that you were given. What's actually kind of fun, and so we put in just a general purpose function that does validation of these things to use for calculating coin IDs, and it's just a best practice. Just include that in everything and always use it all the time. And also, if you're doing announcements, you should be using SHA-tree on sets of information that you're doing in announcements, rather than just concatenating things together, because it's just to make this type of attack not apply. A funny thing is that even after people were told that there was a critical security problem and saw what the patch was, they were kind of confused about what it was, because they saw that there was checking for negative values, and they thought that that was probably it. And actually that's not. We just added in the checking for negative values just on principle. We don't think it's necessary here. Probably also in principle should be checking for values that are too large, but anyway, which we didn't add in there, but no, we think that doesn't matter at all here, but definitely the length checking is important, and the fact that people couldn't or have trouble seeing what the problem is, even being told there's a security problem and looking at the patch and seeing exactly what's different, shows you how this is an easy problem to have. Thankfully, it's a very simple thing to avoid. Just whenever you calculate a coin ID, do it using using a function that does validation of lengths and number of arguments and that kind of stuff. Hopefully that's a reasonably understandable explanation of what the issue is.
Yeah, and I wanted to add a little color on something I'd said, because I think it confused some people. To actually run the exploit, you have to potentially grind by creating a new coin that may have a better outcome when you're trying to print money. So the name of your current coin may only let you create like say 20 of a Chia token, but if you spend it to yourself and create a new coin, that coin ID, when you monkey around with the SHAs, may give you 4 billion. And it gives you what it gives you. In other words, so are people confused that, for example, when we were using the exploit, we printed like 10 billion of one of the coins. That was because that was what the SHA hashes allowed us to do. It wasn't because you could like put in a number and go, hey, I just want 100. You know, you have to either keep the coin or accept the new inflated value.
All right.
One other question related, I think people have. Does the exploit allow you to melt?
Yes. Well, you have to. It's a slightly different implementation, but yes, you can pass a 0 length string for your amount, and then that allows you to melt. So you can get that might be handy if you have a bunch of cat ones and you want to go, well, I want to get the melt value out of these. You can then melt those and get that. That's usually very small amounts of things, but that is a thing that can be done.
Yeah, no, I know Acid Issues was asking, and people correctly thought that the cat is designed not to melt, which they're right, but because of the exploit, you can melt it. We didn't put as much focus on that because, you can always destroy money, so it's not kind of a money risk. But for Acid Issues who do have some Cat 1 tied up, we'll be getting out a melt tool for you to get your Chia back.
Allison, I got one for you that you haven't selected. I'm just going to kind of force it upon you. Is our marketing strategy pointing towards big businesses or more towards the general public? And the summary of this question ends with, are we going to see Chia in Super Bowl adverts like the other crypto advertisements?
Another good question. Yeah. So we have, if you think about Chia, we have a lot of different audiences. So we were talking about kind of NFTs, developers, creators, and on that one side of it. Certainly this community is really important to continue growing as we look for new use cases and other things that Chia can do as we explore what blockchain does overall. And then on the other side of it, actually, I think we were having an internal working session where we probably identified 10 potential audiences, right, that Chia could really invest in. And there's a few that will be, priorities for us in addition to that developer and creator segment. One is really kind of defining the brand at a high level. And that's one where I'm not sure if I would classify that either as big business or the general public, but this is really, anybody who is either a blockchain believer, builder, or somebody who's bewildered, right? And just wants to learn more about what the value is. We need to be able to kind of speak to different people across enterprise segments. So companies that might be thinking about adopting Chia for their potential use cases, multilateral global institutions, like what we've done with the World Bank and the Climate Warehouse, and a lot of different people, and meld all those together into a story that seems to make sense. So one of the things that we're doing right now is defining what our goals look like, both for the short term and the long term. So I'm not going to commit one way or another to Super Bowl or not, but I think we have a lot of growing and maturing to do in our kind of awareness and our education and our and the fundamentals around that before we start the big promotion. And certainly we're going to do a lot of things in the meantime, but we're building that capability, we're building the team, and you'll start seeing more press momentum in all of these different audience segments, in addition to some more focused marketing pushes there. So a lot we're working through to figure out how we kind of meld all those things together in something that feels really cohesive for Chia.
All right, thank you. Gene, excuse me. What sort of attacks do we see, and on the chain in general, on how people are trying to cause any kind of disruption or damage?
So there's a couple different types of attacks. There are three real venues to attack. There's proof of space, proof of time, and the operation of the blockchain itself. We certainly have seen plenty. Well, I would say that we consider some of the research that's been done on proof of space to potentially been attempts to find attacks. The reason I say that is because I think, if you were an academic or even a kind of regular private citizen, I think people would want to be taking credit for doing some good innovative work around proof of space. So, the way that the, other kind of proof of space enhancements rolled out make us kind of question where they may have come from originally, but that's okay. Proof of time, any good attacker knows that there's a very narrow window where they might be able to attack. With our ASICs coming out at the end of the year, the incremental cost to go past, I believe we're at 7 nanometer. No, we're at 14 nanometer. We're in a pretty small size. I can't remember exactly what it was. JM, do you remember?
12.
12. Great. 12.
Yeah.
And so, it costs us $6 to $8 million to kind of do that. So everybody should know that's a real investment. To go beyond that has two big problems. The next step up is kind of $50 to $60 million. And the problem really is getting access to TSMC time or whoever else to get that much smaller process availability. So, it really kind of stacks that attack up, because then you still need 43% of all space. Always remember that a 43% attack is not take today's number and multiply times 0.43. It's actually take today's number, add 43% of more, then take 43% of that. It's almost doubling effectively. And then the final one, obviously, is we've had all sorts of people try to dust storm the network, try to grief all sorts of things. We kind of love that the network is generally shrugged. It is pretty well designed. Surprise, surprise, Bram has thought a lot of this. Certainly found some of our implementation details because, we knew there was a lot of low-hanging fruit to optimize in Node and in Wallet, and that's happening right now. We do take a pretty spam-first view of almost anything we do. It's kind of the first question we ask about a new feature is how can people abuse it? We are going to continue to make those tools even better and do things like ignore dust. But ultimately, it's an open source project with understandable math for many that is real proven in its domains. And so we're pretty comfortable that it's going to, survive those things. As you've seen, the biggest risk is just the unknown unknowns around implementation. The theory of Cat 1 is perfectly sound. That implementation of Cat 1 had a severe problem in it, for example. But that also means that we're going to continue to audit. That's one of the biggest tools we have. We're going to kind of keep rotating through a set of auditors that we like a lot and have them focus on more components. For example, we're probably going to have some take a close look at our custody solution to make sure it matches what we expect it to do. We're also going to certainly kind of refresh what NCC Group did, which is kind of tying all the elements together, but not necessarily going deep on ChiaLisp itself. I also expect we'll probably audit the CLVM directly, so the actual virtual machine itself. So, those are the attacks and what we do to kind of remedy them.
Gene, is there anything you want to say on like a social attack?
So, we harden ourselves as much as we can against social attacks. This is part of the reason why, look, we understand Keybase is substandard right now, but we use it both internally and externally because its identity is so strong. We're kind of excited about DID because it may allow us to take our identities with us off Keybase and use them in other places where, if you're not talking to the Bram signed DID, it's not Bram, and if it's not signed by me, it's not me. And then we're also on Reddit because we can link it across. Again, you have a pretty good confidence that when Hoffmanji on Reddit is saying something, you are actually talking to me. The other thing we do on the background is we have certain standards for the multi-factor authentication of the services we use so that account takeover is really, really hard. But there's a bigger piece of this that is baked into a lot of what we're shipping as core technology, like offers and offers for NFTs, is taking out these massive social attack vectors. You know exactly which NFT you are making an offer for, and you can have a conversation with somebody, and somebody says, "Hey, I want to buy your NFT for 100 Gia." Well, you get to call their bluff. Either they put up an offer file or they have to shut up, and that means that it's not even as interesting for people to come in and do the kind of social media attacks that are being done against OpenSea and others.
All right. Staying kind of the vein of security and privacy, what is our stance on privacy-oriented features with zero-knowledge proofs? Do we want to support it? Do we want to work against it as a regulatory strategy?
We're excited about it. When we originally kind of sat down and figured out what we wanted to build, we wanted to focus on the core blockchain technologies. And those core blockchain technologies are very much all about audit. Right. So, the core Chia blockchain layer 1 is very much a Bitcoin style high audit environment. Intentionally at the time, the, state of the art of ZK and Lightning and other things were clearly soon, but weren't necessarily fully baked as we were getting our build together. We're expecting to add ZK extensions so that it would be relatively easy to run a layer 2 ZK rollup on Chia. We expect that's something we'll do with partners. We don't know that we'll do it ourselves. We'll obviously be providing folks the fundamentals they need in ChiaLisp to do it, and the access to the BLS curve to do ZK rollup work. So ultimately we're excited about that. And I will say we're already starting to have conversations on Capitol Hill and other places about things like a US CBDC and how a US CBDC absolutely requires anonymity while transacting, and that the KYC AML should be when you're entering and leaving that pool and not, every single transaction and everything you do. So, the good news is you'd be surprised how many people in the White House, the administration, and both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill understand that the power of the American dollar in many ways is that it is used as the safe refuge of currency around the world, and we want to not lose that capability for a US CBDC.
Alrighty. Bram, does winning a block at all depend on how far you are, internet network speaking, from a Time Lord? And when multiple people win a block, who gets the actual transaction fees?
Yeah, so as long as you have an even vaguely reasonable internet connection, it doesn't matter at all. Like if your net connection is barely working, I mean, obviously if your net connection is down, you're so far up the time alert, it's not going to work. Basically, it doesn't matter. The thing is that when you have multiple blocks that are made very close to each other in time, because everyone has to just make their block and publish it, they're kind of being made in parallel. There's an ordering in which they show up on the blockchain, but the two people who are making them don't know about each other at the time they're making it, which causes a problem because you can't have two transaction blocks made in parallel, because then they could have conflicting transactions get into them and you could have a double spend of coins. Because of that, what's done is everybody makes a transaction block, but not every block winds up having transactions in it. There's this rule that it has to have been a certain amount of time, as the VDF sees it, since the last transaction block happened, for a block to have transactions in it. So it's not, so about 1 in 3 blocks has transactions in it. And what happens is if two different people at a close enough time to each other that they can't see each other, make blocks with transactions in them, and then both publish those, then whichever one happens to actually be first will have its transactions get in and they get transaction fees. And the other one gets into the blockchain, but their transactions don't get included and they don't get transaction fees. That's how that works.
All right, thank you.
Also,
Gene.
just one note to add on to that. When we do get the VDF ASIC, we're actually going to be making sure that we kind of get a good geographic distribution of those. So you have it kind of protected in multiple ways. There should be no speed of light issues. And frankly, the speed of light doesn't matter, but it is still nice from if there's a major cable cut in the Pacific Ocean, we don't want people to be worried about whether they can get the time order or not.
Yeah, we've been asked a few times, how are we going to choose who wins the sign up process to get them, and that's part of what will factor into that is where are you located, because distribution really doesn't matter. We don't want all 100 or however many we have of them to be in North America, for example.
Yeah, but we're very confident there'll be plenty in, say, Singapore, for example.
Yeah. Gene, does Vitalik and other crypto people in general fully understand Chia? Or are they just simply ignoring it on purpose?
I'll answer the first part of that question. The second part is up to the reader. They absolutely know exactly what we're doing. You can see Chia being talked about in the periphery on Bitcoin core dev list, just because as they kind of think about the future of Bitcoin, we've done some of the things that probably make the best sense even for Bitcoin as well. Vitalik and I had in-depth conversations early on about VDFs and proof of space and time. It is absolutely on the radar of all of the top technologists in the sector.
All right. Fish, can you talk about the DAO and DAO NFT and governance of all that on Chia at all?
I can say I love the idea. I know we are going to do some stuff with DAO governance. What I encourage is we don't have to wait for Chia primitives to be done for people to kind of fake it until you make it. So I do encourage the community, if they feel that's the right direction to do, try some things, do a chip or, do a little bit more centralized in the beginning, we'll get there, but don't stop because we don't have the primitives and you're like, okay, we can't do anything. I would like to encourage that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I'd add, it's more than just on the radar.
All right. This one, Gene, you tagged. I'll start with an answer bit and I'll let you kind of take it from there if you want to still. Can we or will we publish more details on how exactly secure/unwind the bag tool works? First part of that, the tool that we released was a means to an end to help immediately address the Cat2 redistribution. Therefore, all the documentation and guidance on how to use it is very narrowly written with, if you're trying to redistribute a Cat2, here's how you do it with this tool step by step, because it was the laser focus on helping ease that pain as much as possible. There are conversations happening internally right now within our developer relations team and some of our more technical people who help build the tool, actually going back and fleshing out that documentation to explain more of what's happening and how you can use the tool in various use cases. Did you want to add anything to that, Gene?
Yeah, just that, we absolutely had it purpose built, and that we are very well aware that we want to come more generic set of documentation. I'd actually point you to 3 resources if you want to get more details while we're doing that. There is a presentation that was originally given by Jeremy Rubin, and it is linked in one of my tweets, but it's generally easy to find from Google. Jeremy also, there was a Bitcoin magazine article about it overall. And then I believe there's some conversation in the Bitcoin Core mailing list about Secure the Bag and using Merkle trees this way. So, really cool stuff. Pretty darn proud to be the first production implementation of Secure the Bag. And, that is a thing you hear a lot around here, is which we're the first production implementation of a whole lot of primitives that everybody else talks about, but we actually ship.
Yeah, I did like on one of the Reddit threads talking about our mitigation steps for redistributing cats. Someone actually commented in Reddit. They were like, everyone's missing the fact that they just kind of flew under the radar with a working Secure the Bag tool and just like dropped it out of nowhere, when in other ecosystems like Bitcoin, they've been talking about this tool for like 2 and 3 years and nothing's happened with it.
Yeah, there's also another resource that Paul just pointed out to me privately, that the Secure the Bag tutorial for Cat 2 video on YouTube is pretty approachable and gives you a good sense of how to use the Secure the Bag in the general sense.
Yeah. Secure the Bag, like we did not come up with Secure the Bag at all.
Do we want to explain to the people in the call? Maybe we don't. Yeah.
Secure the Bag. The idea is you want to send a whole lot of coins to a whole lot of people. So rather than making one huge transaction that does all of this up front, what you do is you make one coin, which is pre-programmed to only do one thing. It makes a bunch of coins, and each of those is programmed to make a bunch of coins, and so on, and go out until you have all the coins you actually want to make are at the final terminal leaves. But everything in the middle, all it can do is just make more coins. The idea here is making it so that what you do is you make the one big coin right up front, and now you have effectively made everything right now, and it just is unrolled kind of lazily over time whenever the blockchain has capacity for it, and potentially in whatever order people actually need things, they get their part of it unrolled. This is very cool, very basic functionality. You need some kind of extensions in Bitcoin to do it well. Other things aren't well set up for it. It is trivial, like kind of embarrassingly easy to implement in Chia, which is why we just whipped it out.
Cool.
Yeah, I just want to add, there's a bunch of stuff that falls in this category of great ideas that are waiting on extensions to Bitcoin that we can just do.
Mm-hmm. JM, when will Blade Bit disk plot be ready for beta testing? The last demo we talked about a little bit in the alpha for it, and was Harold able to find the issues that caused the original alpha to crash with big file system block sizes?
Yeah, we are incredibly close. If you guys are watching, we have a community spreadsheet where we post performance numbers, and I have, in fact, put up some system level performance for some of the systems I'm benchmarking that will go in the blog post. We're actually going to release a blog post this week but obviously you guys saw that there was a lot of other stuff going on in the beginning of the week. But we will be formally announcing a beta program pretty soon where people can sign up to the beta. And Blade Disk will be the first product that goes through the beta program. So we'll have a real rollout schedule, integration into the GUI for people that want to download the GUI and test out the beta software. We'll have some stuff like system reporting so people don't have to go in and send manually update spreadsheets with like numbers. We'll have parsers for the logs and the results and everything. So a lot of cool stuff coming. We'll announce that here in the upcoming beta program blog. But yes, and we actually are Harold is out on some personal family stuff right now, but we are very, very close. There's like one last merge for the cache, but then we'll be ready for the alpha 2, and we're just a few weeks away from getting started on the beta program. So.
Yeah, I'd also like to add that a certain thing happened that turned all of our people who are interested in plotting and plots into really excited nerds chasing really exciting content. So, it's going to be fun that way. And I think you can all expect a little distraction, but it's a good distraction.
Yep. Gene, this is a conversation that used to come up all the time in AMAs. We haven't talked about it in a while. What are our thoughts on pools that still use the OG, as in the non-pooling NFT plots, such as Foxy pools and H-pool?
Yeah, and I think that question also had a question about, and it can co-farm, right?
Yeah.
So look, our view is that, we understand being lazy, and we understand folks being like, okay, I'm done, I don't want to deal with this. And so I'd say that, we don't recommend certainly plotting new and doing OG pool plotting for new. But, the fact that some remains and has become a smaller and smaller component of the network is just not much of a worry for us. We built the plots and the plot pooling protocol to be able to allow real co-farming. We have not put a lot of effort into those co-farming projects because we have not yet had a project that we think is material enough to really want to do that. But we want farmers to be able to potentially make, farming rewards on more than one chain. And, things like Doge using proof of work is kind of silly. There's certainly been some attempts to converse with them. Those are the kinds of things that we would think would make a ton of sense. And we also think that as proof of space and time over the next couple of years becomes such a clear, superior consensus mechanism that you'll start seeing projects head our way. Some of the DM open source projects after Facebook kind of abandoned that project have actually picked up, for example, VDFs out of the proof of space of time, and exactly our VDF. So, I'd expect you'll see more of that adoption, and we're excited about that.
Cool. And I had some people ask me, I just want to say, Allison and Efficient are still here. Their cameras just off because I presume they haven't left the call, because I know from the view that people see who are watching this, they just disappear entirely from the call and they turn their cameras off. They are still here, so don't worry. You can still ask them questions, guys.
They're waving.
yeah. It's just when they turn their cameras off, the public view, they disappear entirely, and so that's what I think people.
I was eating grapes and didn't want to be rude. I'm totally listening.
Same here. My wife served me lunch. I didn't want to be rude to her.
I want someone to serve me food while I'm stuck doing these things. I'm jealous. So next question we got, this is a really simple question. Atomic swaps? ?
So we have a bunch of different ways we do atomic swaps. Not necessarily sure of exactly what the question was after, but let's talk about the two ways we currently already support. Submarine swaps are supported between Lightning network on Bitcoin side and on Chia. That's in co-inventor of Chia Lisp, Richard Kiss's repository. And then also, offer files are atomic swaps. They are kind of infinitely complicatable atomic swaps, but for any two or more digital assets on the chain, the offer file serves exactly as an atomic swap. To the extent that we can get additional cross-chain atomic swaps, we will be. Running Solidity in Chia Lisp is kind of hard. And so that does limit some of the things we'd like to do, but I think there are some future technologies here, especially around ZK and proof of exclusion and exclusion, that may be able to get some of those swaps going as well. We'd really very much like to have the ability for you to take Bitcoin or Ethereum and atomic swap over or wrap over trustlessly. We do think there's going to be some wrap over that's semi-trusted or low trust, but we'd really like to get to trustless at some point.
All right. So I'm going to do one more question here from the list we have, and then because we're at the stopping point almost here, so I'm going to do one more question, and then each of you, if there's a question we haven't gotten to that you really want to answer, feel free. I'll go through each of you, and you can either just answer one final question if you have one you want to touch on, or if you have a subject in general you wanted to talk about that we haven't spoken about, I'll give you guys a chance to do that. So this last one, do we have plans for any tools for melting NFTs? The particular person in question didn't realize that the way they minted it through, I guess, Sky NFT in their case, they didn't set their DID correctly, and so they want to melt and reissue. Is there a method for doing that?
So I believe that we intended to, but we do not actually have the ability to melt an NFT one.
Yeah, like singletons have a way of melting them, but I don't know if NFTs can access it.
Yeah, so. My last conversation with one of the engineering team was that it can't. So
yeah.
Okay.
So you would just send them to a burn address or something like that. Yeah.
Sorry about that, but at the same time, part of this is you want the singleton to remain a singleton pretty hard.
Yeah, fair. They are technically supposed to be non-fungible. So, okay. Bram, is there any questions that we haven't gotten to, or any topics you want to specifically touch on?
I've been working on on-chain gaming, which I've mentioned before. There were a bunch of pretty technical aspects of how it works, having to do with slashing and being optimistic and trying to avoid putting things on chain and yada, yada, yada. I think I have it all worked out. I think I have a clear roadmap, line of sight to actually having an implementation of making it so that you can play a two-player game that's sort of one of these like individual hand-taking kind of games with somebody else, where you're playing over a state channel directly peer-to-peer with the other person, And the only transactions that hit chain are the setup of a session and then the teardown of a session, and based off of how much money you both have at the end of the session. And where the failure modes are where you wind up having to play out the one last hand actually on chain if somebody misbehaves. And even then the actual like rather expensive validation program of actually understanding the rules of the game only has to be invoked if somebody either attempts to cheat or fraudulently accuses the other person of attempting to cheat. And the penalty for either of those is pretty serious staking. So basically making it very efficient as far as transaction fees and amount of space it takes on the chain going, and also reasonably easy to implement is another nice thing. So I am working first and foremost on the architecture for this, and we also will be putting out I have plans for 2 specific example games for people to play that we're putting out that hopefully people will enjoy those games in and of themselves, but it also is a platform for people to design more games to be played.
Cool. Thank you. JM, any closing thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I put some details in the announcements about the Flash Memory Summit next week for the folks that are local in the Bay Area and want to stop by and say hi. It's a pretty inexpensive conference. I even think the open session and like keynote stuff is free. So if you are around the Bay Area and want to stop by and say hi, I'll be there all week. And we have some exciting sessions on proof of space and time and the Circular Drive Initiative and some other interesting partner announcements that I don't want to spoil quite yet. So
cool. Fish?
I'm really excited to see what the community does in the next 6 months on all the NFT stuff. I think you guys are hitting just the tip of the iceberg. I love seeing everything going on. And then I'm going to answer a question that somebody asked, does Bram want to give any hints about Chia Friends? I don't think he knows anything about the Chia Friends puzzles. We purposely avoided telling most people, and Seth is really the only person who knows. So if you want to get hints, you're gonna have to ping him on Twitter or some other channel.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was a puzzle until like 4 days after they came out, and people were asking me questions about the puzzle. I'm like, what puzzle? What are you talking about?
But
and they're
it's
like,
an
how do you
homage.
not know? I'm like, I don't know what puzzle.
It's an homage to Bram. He loves puzzles. We decided to create one in the Chia Friends, and I would say Seth pitched it, we agreed. So.
Cool. And Allison, how was your first anime?
It was great. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I was scanning the questions. I don't think there's anything outstanding specific to me, but I just wanted to share with everyone. I'm really excited to be here, really believe in Chia and everything that you all are building, and I'm really excited to kind of see what continues to evolve over the months and years, and here for any questions along the way.
Cool. And finally, Gene, I saved you for last because you tend to wax poetic. What's your final thoughts?
Well, before I get my final thoughts, I do want to also point out that at the end of August, the Stanford Blockchain event that usually is in March of each year is actually occurring. Highly recommended again for Bay Areans. Also very inexpensive, very academic. You will actually often get to meet like all the people we've been talking about, both in Bitcoin Core and Vitalik and others will be there. Very good thing. The only thing I'd kind of leave on is that, as much as the bear market in crypto has sucked for a whole host of people, it has actually been quite good to us. Not only have we seen kind of a flight to quality, but, a lot of the noise and trouble with partners or other places just isn't there. And then the feedback that we're getting from the market when we talk about real world use cases, helping build a carbon market and, addressing things at commercial banks and other places, as well as, a healthy, thriving NFT market that's growing like a weed. We're hearing really great feedback that what makes us very comfortable that we're going to be able to both grow, create more assets, and continue to execute on our, going public sooner rather than later plan. So, just wanted to add that color because there's a lot of gloom and doom out there, and we're kind of one of the few things that wasn't very gloomy or wasn't very doomy during this period. And so that actually ends up inuring further because, like, even it's easier to get our lawyers to pick up the phone these days.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for helping us do the AMA today. Thank you everyone else for coming and attending and asking awesome questions. Like we said before, we try to do these every 6 to 8 weeks. So this one was a little bit later than we would have liked, but as you all can understand why, we just kept having one thing after another. It was like, well, we should probably wait a few days to do it, kind of thing. Our next one will probably be what is
Middle
wow,
August.
is it August now tomorrow?
Yeah. The
Wow.
next one's
Okay.
gonna be middle August for product.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be an AMA. That's different. We're gonna do a live stream for product stuff. That's gonna be an AMA.
So it's a Q&A.
Yeah.
for
So we have
product.
we have our scheduled like Q&As that are talking about really cool things and ask us questions about that thing, and then we have the open flow AMA. Like the next AMA we're probably going to aim for will be like mid-September.
See y'all, Allison is already having effect.
Yeah, but we are going to have a Q&A kind of thing about some product stuff for you guys in August to talk about those kinds of exciting things. You know, the question people ask, what are you doing next? So talk about that.
The question is, what announcement do we make every morning?
Yeah. It's a proof of life from Bram. If we go too many days without a good morning, then we should all worry probably. All right. Thanks everyone for participating. As always, if you missed the first part of this or missed any section of this will be up on YouTube within a few hours. We just have to wait for YouTube to do its thing it does, where it like archives the live stream and then re-encodes it, and then it's available. So also, if you watched this not in a native English speaking language, and we'll have community translations and stuff put up for it later too, as the community contributes those as well. So thank you all for attending, and we'll see you all on Keybase.
Bye. Thanks for all you do. Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Win White Hat NFT.